I would like to start with something that a question for the panel here, for all of you to understand how AI could be an integral part of your daily business activities. And therefore, I would like to start from the other side of the panel here with Swayb. Swayb, what do you think is the biggest blocker today in automating processes for MSMEs and SMEs when we talk about specifically mundane tasks? It could be in a bank where we still need somebody to verify my Aadhaar. It could be any day-to-day task which should have been automated, let's say, a decade ago. What stops businesses from being able to achieve that level of automations today, Roy?
So when we talk about automation, right, it's not just a plug-and-play solution where you come in, you have something, you put it in, and it's working fine. It's a 360-degree change. There has to be changes in infrastructure. There has to be changes in the way the management works. There has to be integration capabilities, and yes, your solution also has to kind of fit there. So it's a complete 360-degree turn. It's like I said, it's complete digital transformation. Everybody must understand that when you are coming in and you are automating something, you're not really replacing people. You're empowering them. You're making sure that the work which they were doing on a daily basis, which was being done at, let's say, for example, they were taking 5 minutes or 10 minutes or a couple of days to do something. Now, as a business, you'll be able to focus a little bit more on your productivity and in a less amount of time. And what it just needs a change of thought. So the answer to your question is that it's just reception. People should be receptive. They should be open to adapting new technology. They shouldn't be scared about it. Yes, there are going to be security implications to it. There are going to be risks involved, but you have to be open about it. And it's not going to happen if somebody is thinking with a very legacy-based mindset. It has to. The world is changing, and we have to adapt to it. We have to change with it. So that's kind of what it is.
Right. Thank you so much for that detailed answer, Swayb. So this is going to be a kind of a series of questions where we're going to try to cover up all aspects of AI. So coming to Anand, my biggest question or my biggest problem as an individual who's running the company themselves, what Swayb just said that makes a lot of sense, and he just used the word threat casually because obviously his business is to make sure that as much automation sells, but that risk is big. Right? How does a small business ensure that in this process of automation, they're not going to lose what was already happening because they've already lost the employees that they had to do it? And second thing, if there's a breach with a human being, I know where to put a finger on. How do, in an AI-based future world, I ensure that this automation does not come at the cost of my data being lost or me being compromised in it?
Sure. So there are two parts. So if I have to kind of draw a timeline, right? So we started, at the core of it is essentially humans need to work. And work is essentially a set of tasks which you need to accomplish to get to your goal, right? So you started with hard labor, which was essentially what work kind of detailed, right? Then the second stage was with somewhere down the line we discovered that okay, there are computers and software could actually do a few of the things which we had to anyway get an knowledge, right? So that was the era of the software, right? Then essentially we realized that setting up software was very, very complex and it was very expensive, right? Then we kind of dawned into an age what was called SaaS, right? Which was essentially that okay, let me take the pain out of software, but let the basically the automation that software brings be in it, right? So SaaS was kind of had this like 10, 12 years of really good existence. But now when we move from SaaS to AI, it's a big flip, right? And the reason why it's a big flip is until now, if you look at it, right, software was enabling humans to accomplish more, right? But all of a sudden now you're saying essentially why were you accomplishing even tasks in the first place? Your task had an outcome, right? And essentially now what you're saying is that AI is that tool which will skip this entire bandwagon of assisting someone to do their tasks to get to an outcome. You can actually direct somebody to do the outcome, right? So it's a big game change that way, right? But the challenge is now how do you really trust someone? Let it be a software, let it be a tool, whatever you want to call it. that they will accomplish the outcome in the exact same way you want. And that's where the entire challenge is, right? So now, because when you let's say look at AI as such, right? I mean, we are talking about safety of AI. If you ask me honestly, I mean, I could keep my hand on my heart. We are not at a place where we can even set the goals right for a model, right? It's very hard to define a goal for a model right now. People say, okay, models hallucinate. I say they don't. The challenge is you don't even understand the goal of the model. Why are they even hallucinating in the first place? The model thinks that it's the correct answer, right? But we don't understand the context in which the model thinks it's a correct answer, right? Then you have this entire problem of prompt security and other pieces attached to it, right? So you can't guarantee the prompt, you can't guarantee the output, right? So if I have to, let's say, look at from a very SME, MSME kind of lens, right? I think one challenge is there is a lot of buzz, there's a lot of hype, right? So as there is a lot of information, but there's very little insight, right? And what happens in that case is, usually in those scenarios, when you look at management, leadership of these companies, right? They get tech anxiety, right? That there is something big coming, we will lose out if we don't adopt, right? The challenge is, you have no clue how to do it, right? So in that case, what you do, you basically, I mean, if you look at it, right? So there was one survey, I'm forgetting the name of the survey. In SMEs especially, 94% of the leadership has this anxiety, right? Where they're not really sure what they have to do, but they have to do something. So what happens in that context is, essentially the mean becomes the end.
Yeah.
Instead of AI becoming the tool to accomplish the outcome becomes AI that we have to adopt it, right? So that's one. Because you rush into it, you end up doing things in a little bit of, in the ways which you actually shouldn't have, right? And the flip side is, employees are actually on the other end of the spectrum, where they see a lot of risk and fear, and hence they are very, I mean, they're not due to the change, right? So you end up with basically these two contrasting views in these companies, right? So I think if you have to kind of navigate these waters, I would say adopt gradually, test very thoroughly, right? And what do you want to test? You want to make sure that your data is safe. How exactly is it secure? Is there explicit customer or consumer intents, right? Is the data anonymized? Is the data encrypted, right? How do you ensure that no model is being trained on your data, right? As Ritan said, I mean, how do you even ensure you're not infringing on somebody else's IP, right? And the other challenge with SMEs is that it's very hard to build efficiency on AI in an SME environment, because one, if you look at AI, right, even I mean, no matter how big the buzzword is, most of the applications built on AI currently are in the version 1, right? So efficacy is highly questionable, right? And the other challenge is when you adopt those models on your, let's say, franchise, right? The challenge is you have very little breadth and depth of data as a small company. So the efficiency itself, I mean, gets questioned even further, right? So I would say just have a little caution before the devotion, right? So as long as you kind of tread carefully, I think things should be fine. But it's not that, I mean, AI is going to make or break your company next month. So just be very, very optimistic, but at the same time very, very cautious, right? As Nitin said, you might end up paying more than you really achieve out of it. So be careful.
Now, coming from experience, I would say that my next question to Nitin should be something which should resonate with a lot of people. When we run a business, Nitin, our biggest thing is values of the company, right? Values is not just the capital or the valuation or the market cap, but also as a business which is growing. It's important to understand how I can grow the value of my business for my customers, how I can protect it. I have often seen in all of these conversations that we just had, there is no understanding on how businesses can first of all understand and identify that these processes that they're planning to automate or the AI they're trying to implement, is it something which is defensible? Because a lot of people believe that their business is defensible. It is not in the real world. And the second thing is, even if I understand, yes, my business is defensible, how do I go ahead with that journey? Where do I start? How do I find a Nitin in my life to start protecting that technology, start protecting my ideas? So
yeah, before I answer the question, I'll give some more facts about the AI aspect, not know. You know, when the AI was coined initially, in the first term, AI was coined in 1956 in a Thomas conference that happened in US. most of the people still relate AI to kind of machine learning. Machine learning is not really AI. Science. So ChatGPT is not really machine learning, but right.
I'm glad you're saying that.
Yeah, I bought some. You see that? Yeah. Now, to answer your question, I'm going to do something here. If you talk about the number of AI research that has happened over the years, there are 1.6 million documents that you can find in AI published in 2010. Post 2010, the number of documents are still increasing, but their ratio to the patents being filed on AI has reduced from 8:1 to 3:1. Now there are still a lot of publications happening, but for every 3 publications, there is a patent being protected. Why the company is creating patent? To bring in the value that we talk about, right? Now, every SME and MSME has a dream of getting a nice valuation in the market, going to the investors, talking about, how can we raise the next round of funding, whether it's a Series A, Series B, what should I be protecting? When I go to the investor, believe me, no investor is going to invest in you if you just have a product. India is a copycat market, guys, right? You invent something, someone the deep pocket, if you are getting a market share, someone will just come, copy, and start selling the same thing the very next month. Now, to create a value of your company, to defend what your company is doing, you have to be very careful about what you are doing, and if you can have a right to just do it for the next 20 years. Speak to your engineers, speak to your R&D department, whatever product you're selling in the market, can I really protect it with having a patent on it? Yes, if there is some innovation, go ahead, protect it in India. Start with it in India, then spread across the world. Any company, even if it's a Google or an Apple of the world, the company's valuation is not actually on the top line only. It's also based on the fact whether the top line will be taken away by the competitors if there is no protection on that top line. Yes. So right now, if Google is valued at something, or for that matter, Drone AI is valued at something, the Drone AI is valued so high because they have a series of patents that they have done on what they are innovating or protecting. So a very simple answer to your question, Tushar: identify what you can protect to what you are doing, make your company defensible with the fact that no one in the market would capture what you are doing, become a copycat, and start taking away your market share. If that answers the question.
Yeah, so I just want to add about follow-on question to that. How does a small company identify if they are infringing somebody else's patent, or if they're doing something which could hurt them in the future? Implementing AI is not that hard. You could hire a bunch of engineers, but what happens if I implement AI and let's say it's an Apple's patent, I start making $100 billion a year next year? What happens then, and how do I protect myself from that lawsuit which will come today or tomorrow?
Sure. So if you want to implement a new technology in your company, first of all, you have to identify that whatever technology you are implementing, you're not infringing on anyone's IP right. So you have to get a thorough search done to see if any company has rights on that particular technology in that jurisdiction where you're trying to make, sell, or export from, right? All these are covered. It's not necessary that you are selling it in India. If you are manufacturing it in India and you are exporting it to US, right? If that technology is also protected in US, you cannot do that, right? You will be infringing on the right. So you have to find, as he said in Nitin, to help you to identify whether you are not infringing by implementing that technology on someone else's patent. If you do, there are ways around it. You have to design around that technology so you can still implement it. So a thorough, what we call at the top of the art, a freedom to operate or a clearance search needs to be done before you implement that technology internally and start selling the product. There's several lawsuits, like, there are companies in US, I'll just take a name, Enter Digital. What do they sell? Nothing. They have like 1,000 engineers who only do research, file patents, sues the other companies, and all of their revenue comes from licensing, right? They make 1.3 billion every year just through their patent portfolio and by licensing out the technology to the other company. I'm not saying that you cannot license in. So if you want to implement a technology internally to grow your market, you just have to pay a licensing fee, and you can, take the technology internally deploy in your company, make your product cheaper. In the long run, you're gonna make more money. You're gonna increase your EBITDA.
Thank you. Thank you. Word in the market is transformative AI, where AI will be able to take decisions much like humans in real-time intelligence. We have all heard that chat GPT, etc., you fed data and they can see results. But where they start talking about transformative AI, where machines do not need historic data to start taking decisions. What do you think is the biggest safety concerns of these systems, and how far are we from actually seeing these systems implemented into a day-to-day business?
I think because it's a very generic term, the challenge is I think we are kind of somewhere missing this distinction of using AI for certain tasks versus using AI for, let's say, creating capital weapons, right? It's the same tool because I think, and largely ChatGPT is the culprit, right? Because it's the same tool which is kind of basis of a lot of innovation and applications across, right? So what I think what people have kind of come to think of it is that that's the same use, basically the same technology kind of spread across use cases. So hence when you let's say talk about transformative AI, right, and autonomous decisions from an AI point of view, right, you essentially don't. I think one distinction we need to make is that you don't need an atom bomb to kill a mosquito all the time, right? So you should have horses for courses that way. So, I mean, so for example, in a case like, let's say, perception systems where you need an autonomous vehicle, you need autonomous decisions, right? But if you are talking to, let's say, a customer from a customer executive point of view, right, you don't need like the entire thing seamlessly autonomous, right? So you have to make distinctions in terms of what is the most suited model and what's most suited operations behind it as well, right? So there's that's one distinction which we are not really making at this point in time. The other thing I think is somewhere one of the big fallacies is that we are somewhere relying on single model to do the entire whole 9 yards of the decision, right? So for example, what is the biggest concern? We are not sure whether the model we are using, whether the safety is intact. And the challenge is that that intactness of the safety is not a singular decision. The model could perform really well for a use case and absolutely fail for another, right? And within the same use case, it could fail for one, that's a certain prompt, and not for the others, right? I think maybe one piece or one trick which we are missing is that why not delineate the models itself? So let's say this is a proposal. I mean, I'm not saying I'm the best at this, but for example, one of the things which you could do is, even when you're looking at transformative AI, right? Now, how do we really basically, let's say, prevent or rather ensure the veracity of a decision or efficacy of a decision in a corporate scenario in the absence of software, right? You essentially have maker-checker systems, right? Somebody takes a decision, but somebody ensures that the decision is correct before it's taken, right? But now somewhere we are on AI side, we are saying this model will actually give you the decision or accomplish a goal. But at the same time, the model has to ensure that it is a fair decision, it is an inclusive decision, there is no infringement, there's nothing else, right? So maybe there is a lot of merit in saying that, okay, I mean, if I have to, let's say, draw up an example. So in the case of, let's say, an autonomous model where you actually get a decision, why not implement another model on top of it which actually ensures its fairness, right? And the job of the first model is essentially just to come and arrive at a decision, but not implement unless and until the checker actually gives a go-ahead. So we need to build a lot of old school innovation on top of this as well, just to make sure that things really come together. Just to give you an example, I mean, let's say transformative pieces. So for example, the AI which we are building at Subconscious, right? So it's an independent model which actually sits on the device, and we are actually giving the pre-trained weights, but we are not really pre-training the models, right? So essentially, when you deploy it on your device, the model is learning from habituation on the device itself, right? And there we are saying, but at the same time, even though the model is really capable of, let's say, for example, if I detect, right, I'm capable of actually dominating that process. What we are implementing is we are saying no. Maybe in the first run, so that you know that the decision actually makes sense, right? And then the second level is you actually sandbox those decisions. So I basically sandbox and say, okay, these processes, this is what is malicious about them. What's your intelligence into it, right? What's your insight into it? Now, if I get enough insight tomorrow and they say, okay, let's say out of the 100 sandboxing of malicious activities, 9 times the model was right? then maybe you can say, okay, as a first line of defense, for these kind of malicious activity, please kill the process, right? So you have to kind of traverse the journey that way, right? So, I mean, just out of the blue, you can't simply say that it's not a decision on my behalf. It's a black box.
Sure. I would just like to add a little bit. I feel that for companies, it's you cannot just like you rightly mentioned, you cannot just put it on AI to make the full-fledged decision. I feel that it's imperative for the companies to have their own final approval system over there. Yes, you can add some sort of configuration layer, which can be manual, and they have to see, when it is, there has to be custom deployments, custom solutions all the time, and they have to be use case specific, they have to be process specific, and you need to give the power to the organizations themselves so that they can cater that technology to their benefit. I'll share an example. So for a particular bank which we guys work for, first we guys built a system which was just filtering out and giving them more like an AI based credit approval system. So it was giving decisions and was giving a score in terms of how many people qualify. And the result which we were getting from the management was that you guys have built more like a filtration system. It's just filtering out, it's not solving the problem. Now for the bank, the solution was not the AI-based credit approval system. They wanted to give out loans. They did not want a credit approval system. So for them, they wanted to tweak the leniency themselves. They wanted to manage it themselves. So again, the thing is that kind of power should lie with the organization themselves.
So makes a lot of sense, Sway, but why you say that? It should lie with the organization, but organizations, not all small organizations have the in-house technology capabilities to learn what they can automate, how they can implement AI. So what do you think is the right process for a company to start on how they can identify processes they can automate, or in other words, how they can implement AI into their day-to-day activities? What is that ideal starting point for a small business? Where should they start?
So the first thing is, there are two things. First is infrastructure. So as a provider, the infrastructure and the platform, everything must be provided by you, right? You cannot expect them to have everything. So that's number one. Number two is that, yes, rightly said, the identification of the processes is also very important aspect of it. So, and this is also a very manual work. So this is where you yourself have to go ahead, train, educate the organization.
But good point here. You said educate, right? That's why I smile. How do you educate someone who has not experienced AI? My point is, you're going to a small business. I have a small business. Let's say I'm a distributor for Colgate Palmolive. I have 300 processes which could automate in my company. Right? How do you come, or how does a distributor start that journey to identify what he can automate?
Right. So let's say, for example, somebody needs a particular task to be automated, right? But they have a very different set of rules, which, and let's say, for example, the methodology which they follow and the way they work, it's not feasible for automation, and they want automation. So maybe they need to first make sure that some of the way they're collecting data, that is clean, it's digital. Let's say, for example, everybody is collecting receipts and they want to do invoice automation, but all the receipts which they have are handwritten. How can they do that? It's going to cost them a lot of money. They cannot afford that kind of stuff. So maybe if they have some sort of a UI-based application, which you can offer them, you can offer that infrastructure, where now they will be inputting all of that data in a digitized format. Yes, you can do processing on that. So yes, education is important on that front, and infrastructure also has to be provided by you. So that's what I would say.
So I'll give a very small example of what. So my company was 2019 was acquired actually by a French company, Quest Health. So they actually implemented AI. Just I was talking about the invoice booking, right? So they did implement a system. Its name is called Exact. What they do, like the agent invoices, so they work with about 20,000 agents worldwide, and their invoices comes in like different formats. Some of the each are literally handwritten, coming from Bangladesh and other places. So like this system, they just have to feed this invoices, and everything is being parsed and done through the AI modeling, and the system get taught itself with respect to what they have done in the previous month to this month. So there are systems out there, and they learned about implementing something like this through one of the sessions that their CFO has actually joined, and there was a training about how to fix that. So I think one of the things most of the SMEs and MSMEs should do is to have, there is a need of an educational program in the market teaching SMEs and MSMEs of what are the different processes that they can automate using AI, right? They just have to slice and dice the different operations that they have in the company.
Thank you for that. So guys, we've been talking about AI for a while, so I would love to take questions before we come to a closing.
If I am a small SME who for processes contacted a company to write a CRM for my company, which is pretty common, and I tell myself, I don't understand this AI mumbo jumbo. The guy who's designed my AI, he's the IT guy, he's the expert. And I tell him to write the next CRM, what process around AI. So why should I get bothered into doing all this myself when I'm delegating my IT outside anyway? First part. Second part, security wise. Yes, I'm very afraid of my security. So all the present security which is there, whether it's Norton or all the other security processes which are there, I'm sure those companies will start making security for or against AI anyway. Or do we need to buy that separately?
First thing you have to understand is outsourcing is great, but if outsourcing worked, Apple won't have such a large workforce. You won't have hundreds of employees working for you.
SME.
We're
not talking Apple.
I'm saying even SME. I'm saying any organization, when you outsource when they give you a contract, and this specifically with AI, it's becoming even more prevalent. And we have Prue here who you should talk to about this. Most of these contracts say that the repercussions of what AI does lies with you. That is a big lawsuit which is going on, where Tesla is trying to sue a sub-vendor called IndySemi in the US, where they're saying that their autonomous car system is failing. It's a good example to understand this, is because of that specific product, not because of Tesla itself. Now, in AI, everybody, iski topi uske sar wali kahani chal rahi hai, where everybody's handing off their problem to the next person. So when you hire a third party to do this for you, and obviously the lawyers are other people who answer this better, the responsibility lies with your organization when you're using that product. Because that product, that CRM has been built for your company. So when that AI is infringing somebody else or is causing trouble to the end user or something fails, that responsibility solely lies on you. That is number one. Because that's one of the biggest problems with AI today, and that's the safety thing, and that's why I said that's such a perfect forum we are in, with a lawyer, with a because unlike a normal operation, let's say you have a taxi service where you send a person who drives a car and drives an Innova and takes someone from the airport to home. When they crash the car, you can find the driver liable or the other person. The world we are in right now is in a flux where we're just transforming into this AI-led world. So all the responsibility today when an autonomous car goes hit someone lies on the autonomous car company. Similarly with AI, that responsibility is on you, not the IT person you hired. It is on the directors. And in India, I can assure you, because I have an episode with the Indian Army, it completely depends on the directors of the company, not the computer, not the IT person. You are solely responsible for all outcomes, positive or negative, of what AI does for you. And therefore, it is so important for you to step in. Your IT guy can simply put a resignation the next morning. He will be called to 5 court hearings, which your lawyer, his good lawyer, will be able to get him out of. You are the one in trouble. So yes, sir, today you need to step in, and your IT person cannot do it. Now, taking the other part of your question, I think I would want अंतर being the security person to take why not it will not.
This is that part where you said earlier, iski topi uske sir. So the company makes the tech and then tells me the topi's on your because
Absolutely.
you paid.
Absolutely.
Not because of his shortcut.
By the law, by all your contracts, when you buy a software from a company and it's being implemented by your company, you are solely responsible for whatever outcomes in the Indian court. I know this for a matter of fact because we work with BEL who created a solution, and I'm telling his first-hand experience. That solution caused a major issue. Somebody was infiltrating, they were short dead, it was just a farmer, not a militant. BEL, who made the whole solution, was found liable, not the operators, not Cron, not the sub-vendors. Only the person whose name on which the final invoice was is considered liable for AI-based problems. In India, as of today, better answer, you have a man sitting right next to you. You should reach out to him for better answers around this.
So, Tushar, I know we're a small forum, so I'll just interrupt. See, security comes after something is created.
Yes.
Right? When we are especially focusing on MSMEs and SMEs, let's say the turnover is less than 10,000 crores, 5,000 crores, whatever. The question is why? Why do I need to even care about AI? It's not yet ready. And I am not the person who needs to wonder about, I don't want to be like the first 1 percentile of anybody who wants to try something out. And the question is, how can it help me with my top line? How can it help me with my bottom line or my margins or my efficiency? And I think we're not yet, we're not trying to answer why for the business owner. And we're saying, ये कर लोगे तो ये हो जाएगा, इसको ऐसे कर लो, इसको ऐसे use कर लो, आपकी liability है. All those comes later, right? First tell me what will I benefit out of? For example, if my liability is 1,000 crores, 10,000 crores, whatever it is, if my top line is gonna get steroid injection of 10x, 100x, 200x, I'm willing to take that liability, right? So what is there? What do we have there? Because I am not a technology developer. I am an enabler, right? So as an enabler, what do I get? For example, SaaS also, MSMEs and SMEs came very, like we were the tails of the entire implementation model. And today when we have digested SaaS, the tech has put another dinosaur in the zoo and saying, okay, now this is a new animal you can play with. And we don't understand, we're still getting used to SaaS, to be very frank.
Sure.
Right? So
I'll give you a very simple example of this, right? I come from a business family and we started our grassroots in a small place in Farm. So when we came here, we were working with a company called Procter & Gamble. When we say AI, we are talking about AI's generational AI. AI is in everything. What is artificial intelligence? Basically, a machine being able to take some level of decision. That's happening everywhere.
I mean, my spreadsheet can do that for
Your spreadsheet does, right? That is a form of AI, correct? Now, why a small business organization? And sir, I've not forgotten your question. Let's just come back to that. So, why do you need AI in your day-to-day? It's very, very important thing. Now, I'm not sure how effectively top lines will start getting impacted for SMEs today, but obviously 6 months or 2 years down the line, we're in a better position to answer that. We'll start with a simple example of a company called PK, which is manufacturing pipelines and junctions for Reliance Group for oil and gas. They're an oil and gas manufacturing company. First time I went to their plant, I met Mr. Jot Singh. I said, sir, you're a friend and a mentor. I think more than 50% of the processes in your factory can be automated. And the first thing he said back to me was that you got to be out of your mind. I've been running this business for 50 years. And if that is possible, in that case, the biggest problem will be that there are a lot of things which happen in oil and gas business. There are cash payments, etc. I don't want to get into the trouble, and then there's parts which we buy. It's a highly regulated market. And a small AI tool changed their lives. That AI tool's main job was to manage how the products for manufacturing, the raw components which were coming in, they could predict when they'll run out of that based on a simple model which could say, okay, we sell 50, we get tenders, we make 50 junctions a year which sell to Reliance. Reliance is opening 2 new pipeline projects. This will go up to 75, and the raw material in that business is the biggest problem, so that you can get that specific pipe production. By just implementing that, their average delays and latency in delivery, which was 6 months, came down to 2 weeks in a year of implementing it. So AI doesn't need to be complicated. a simple tool, a simple AI-enabled tool which could help them predict the amount of material that they needed for manufacturing, which a CRM tool can also do, which is AI, right? is exactly what changed their lives. It changed their factory altogether, and that is AI. Now, why do you need to be not the people joining this on the fag end of the tail like most of the SMEs did for all other businesses or all other technology innovations? Because AI is knocking on the door. Business is more competitive than ever before. Your profit margins, which used to work on 8 to 9% on an average business, has come down to 1.5 to 1%. And as we go further, the competition is going to increase and your profit margins are going to get lesser. So your top line might not grow as fast as you need to reduce your bottom line. And AI's main goal is to allow one of your employees to do the task of 3. And that is why you cannot afford that your competitor has already replaced 10 people with a computer where you're waiting for it, and therefore because you're burning 100 crores to win the 1000 crore tender just to survive and he's burning 50, you've already lost the battle because his burn is 50% of yours. And the next thing is that by the time these tools will be perfect for your business, AI is like a 5-year-old child now. You need to mend it, mold it to fix your problems in your way. Train it on your data, and that is going to be a journey. When you realize you need it, you already would have crossed the 2 years, and that's the day you realize you need it, but it'll be too late and your competitor will be too far ahead of you. This is not the 90s. Your competitor takes the lead of 1 month to you, you're already history, right? So that's my thought on that. But just before we go any further into this discussion,
Can I just say bravo?